Hey everybody, Dr. Guy E. White, founder of thedissertationmentor.com. Did I say that right? Thedissertationmentor.com. And I'm really excited that you are here because this means that you're going to like this presentation. And so I'm very excited that you have the opportunity to see it. Basically, it's about how to create a purpose statement. And if you're writing a dissertation, chances are this is one of the most difficult tasks through which you have to actually work during your dissertation writing. So this is really good that you're watching this presentation. By the end of this presentation, you are going to fully understand how to write a purpose statement and what are its components and all those lovely things. So glad that you're here. In general, I just want to say that getting this step right will save you hundreds of hours for rewrites. And where most candidates go wrong, I've been a dissertation chair for a long time, and what I know is that most candidates feel like if they knew how to do this process from the get-go, if they had a map, they would be able to get it done right the first time. And one of the places that they go wrong is that they write a purpose statement and they fly forward in their study thinking that they're really solid and they know what they're going to be studying and they know what their study is going to be about. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. And so my hope is through this presentation, you're going to understand more of what is required of you and how to have a purpose statement that actually works such that you don't have to go through the process of rewriting a lot of things. And I imagine that sounds good for you. I introduced myself before, and just in case you've never heard me, heard of me before, I am Dr. Guy. And my number one most favorite thing to do in my life is spend time with my children. And for me, when I think about life, the dissertation is not my life. If you're writing the dissertation right now, you might be living the dissertation. It might feel and be your life right now. But I think the goal of any dissertation writer is to be able to move beyond this season and graduate. And if you are wanting to move on and graduate, you are in the right place. So I'm so happy that you are here. I have a lot of experience in this area, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to tell you how to write a purpose statement. But I've written a lot. And just to say, I've been a dissertation chair for a very long time and worked with many candidates as a chair and as a committee member. And I am the founder of thedissertationmentor.com. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you take a look. So let's jump straight to it, okay? Is basically the first step of creating a purpose statement is figuring out who you are studying. Now, the who could be a person. It could be, and by a person I mean a type of person, or your who could be an organization as a whole. But in general, what I do find is that candidates really struggle in this place most, is figuring out authentically really who are they studying. How specific do you need to be? You need to be so specific that without naming the person, that I could walk in any like organization. Like for example, if you were talking about, public, secondary, comprehensive schools, which is another way of saying a public high school, I should be able to walk into any public high school in, you name the state, and I should be able to find a person like the one that you're describing. I should literally be able to walk in the building and put my finger on them. Simultaneously, if you're talking about an organization as a whole, those types of studies are hard to do. But if you were doing an organization as a whole, we really would want to narrow that down to a specific type of person, perhaps within the organization. Unless you're talking about policy, then we want to talk about what specific type of policy. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we want to really narrow down who we're talking about inside your organization that you're studying or the locale that you're studying. So the who, what is their exact position and title? For example, instead of saying just teachers, maybe you're saying advanced placement Spanish teachers. Or if that's not your thing, we'll have an example in a moment that you can take a look at. But basically, this person's title should be similar in all settings that are similar to the one that you're studying. So if you're studying, again, schools, you want to make sure that any school that could walk into that fits that type of school that you're studying, that I could actually find the exact person that you're talking about. And if you really named this person's position and title, would anyone get it? Would they fully understand who this person is within the organization or within the locale that you're talking about? And I use the word locale to say that sometimes people aren't studying organizations. Sometimes people are studying cities or countries, things like this, or generations. And this is another way of getting at it. But just to say, as specific as you can get, the better. So here's an example. For example, most candidates might start out by saying, I want to understand leaders. And what I'll often say to a candidate is, great, well, what type of leaders? And they'll say, well, CEOs. I really want to understand CEOs. And I'm, well, okay, well, there's a lot of CEOs in the world, like probably hundreds of thousands of CEOs. What type of CEOs? And they scratch their head and they might say, well, new ones. I want to know stuff about new ones, because they've been doing a lot of reading maybe recently. Hopefully, you're doing a lot of reading. And what they've seen is they've seen a lot of literature about new CEOs, and that's something hot that they want to study. I'm like, good, okay, new CEOs, but we need to get really specific here. What type of new CEOs? And oh man, that's difficult. Oh, what do you mean? What type? Well, how about new CEOs that have 5 or less years of experience? And that's pretty darn close. But if you think about that sentence, CEOs with less than 5 years of experience, what we need to know is 5 years of experience where? Or in what context? And so, of course, we get to this bottom sentence that you're seeing here, which is CEOs in their first 5 years in this position as a CEO. Think about how specific that is. If I had a list of every company in the world and I could narrow it down by CEOs, I'd see that. Then I can narrow it down to new CEOs in their first 5 years in that position. I have a very narrow list. And that's exactly what you're going for in a purpose statement, is you need to find a person. If we're studying persons, now some of you might not want to study people, but we need to get that specific. We actually need to name the type of person down to the letter of who they are without actually saying their name. And we'll talk a little bit about this more further detail in a few slides. So that's step 1. Step 2 is you want to figure out where. And the where can actually make or break a dissertation. In fact, I would say that nearly half of dissertations that I work on, the first drafts that I see don't end up being the study that we actually do, more than half. And the reason why is because in most universities in the United States, you cannot select a single organization, one organization, to be the focus of your study. So if there's some company that you work for and you want to focus your study on them, chances are you're probably not going to be able to do that. And the reason why is because most universities have a prohibition against what's called evaluation. Your job as a dissertation writer is not to evaluate your organization or to evaluate really any organization. That's not the purpose. Instead, you're looking for some larger trend, something that's much more specific to the literature and what's being said and all those readings that you should be reading. And I know that sounds very ambiguous, especially if you haven't been doing that reading. But just to say that when someone is kind of weakly, poorly, not quite up to snuff, conducting a great literature review, if they're not really stooped into literature, what can sometimes happen is that they become ultra-focused on one organization. And that's really not what is being asked of you as a dissertation writer. We're really looking to understand a larger problem in its context and potentially look at some solutions for that problem. So for example, your problem statement in your chapter 1, you're looking for a potential solution for it, something or something that at least speaks to that problem statement. And if it's a well-developed problem statement, it's probably not about just one organization. So that's one thing we got to think about. And I know that many of you you might be looking at me right now thinking, oh, what's this guy know? I'm just going to study my one organization. Okay, my recommendation, though, is you do contact your university, someone that has extensive experience in dissertations at your university, and ask them that question. Can my study focus on one organization? And chances are you're going to hear no. So what you want to do is you want to select a type of locale or organization that would allow us to look into other like locales or organizations. For example, I wouldn't pick my university as the one organization that I'm studying. Instead, I would say, I work for a nonprofit, private, religious. I don't, but a nonprofit, private, religious college, a four-year college. That narrows it down pretty well there. But I need to get even more narrow, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But again, we want to name specifically what type of organization or locale we're talking about. If you're not talking about an organization, maybe you're talking about a locale like rural communities in the Midwest, and you get even more specific than that. If I looked at this place, whatever locale or organization you're thinking, what is a common name for it? What's a name that no matter who I was, wherever I was, I would understand exactly what type of organization that was? And if you name this place, basically would I understand that? So for example, earlier when I said, public comprehensive secondary schools, that's, in the education community, that's a pretty universal title for a high school. And what that tells us is it's not a private high school, it's not a charter, it's a public high school. It's not a continuation or alternative ed environment, it's a comprehensive high school. So that gets really specific. So let's look at an example here of what that would look like. People often will say, I want to study businesses, and you'll think, okay, well, what type? Well, how about publicly held companies, companies that sell stock to the public? Well, good. Let's get even more specific than that. How about publicly held Fortune 500 companies, right? And I don't know why, but for some reason I saw fit to include that twice here on this slide. I didn't mean to do that. But also, how about publicly held top 10 Fortune 500 companies? Now, that would be a Fortune 10 company, but for the sake of this our discussion, you're seeing how we're narrowing here. And what we might land on here at the end is publicly held top 10 Fortune 500 companies in the United States. Do you see how specific that is? It's almost like there's a list of these companies. I could go find which ones are publicly held and privately held, and which one are the top 10 publicly held ones that are based in the United States. You see how specific this is? So that's how specific you need to get with your organization or with the locale that you're studying. Now, by the way, I didn't say this in the last time, but if you, this would be a great place to pause this video and to actually start going through it yourself and narrow down yourself at the end of each one of these steps. So with that, on to step 3. Your next step is to figure out the what. And this is the most difficult aspect of a dissertation, because what you're doing is you're choosing what of these people are you examining. This takes the most background work. It requires that you are unbelievably stooped in the literature. This does not mean that you've written a literature review. What this does mean is that you've read a lot of stuff, you've collected lots of quotes, and you've gotten something we call a theoretical framework, which we'll talk about momentarily. Overall, the big things, you might have a purpose statement right now sitting in front of you or somewhere nearby you. The number one thing you want to avoid is buzzwords. That is, unless you want to finish soon. If you want to, if you want to finish soon, you should avoid these types of buzzwords. Specifically, like words that really don't mean anything, like effectiveness and motivation. They have meaning, but the meaning is very big. Effectiveness is not, again, that sounds very evaluation based. We're not looking for effectiveness in a dissertation. We're looking at something even more specific than that. We're not looking for motivation. One I didn't include on this list, but a really important one is impacting. Oh my goodness. That word impacting, if that word appears in your purpose statement, something's quite wrong. Anything that infers comparisons, relationships, causation, correlation, truly, unless you are really, you're at a distinguished university, I don't know, maybe you're gonna be an Oxford scholar, I don't know, and we're not looking in a dissertation to go down these roads if we can help it. And the reason I say this, and this often becomes quite an argument with many candidates, is when we walk down the road of relationship, causation, and correlation, and to a certain extent comparing, what that means is that the rigor of your study is exceedingly high. And it's so high that it's out of reach for most. You know, you think about organizations companies that want to understand, cause and effect or relationships or correlation. These are all different ways of looking at something. They pay hundreds of thousands of dollars over many years to get a research firm to study and do this type of study. I imagine you don't want to take many years and a lot of resources to finish this process. So my recommendation is to avoid traps like these, because they're the traps that really hold you back. And so I'm going to present some alternatives in a moment. Really, in the end, it starts with getting what we call a theoretical framework. Now, I have another video that talks about choosing a theoretical framework. And you can get that video by going to the dissertationmentor.com, signing up and receiving our videos, and that would greatly help you. But the key question I have for you is, can you specifically name your theoretical framework? You should be able to name it outright. And if you don't know what that is, keep reading on here and go see the videos. And also at the same time, look through your books. Maybe you have a book about dissertation writing. Look for something called a theoretical framework. Sometimes you'll see something called a conceptual framework, which is another way of looking at the same issue. But really, what you're doing is, with a theoretical framework, is it's a model. It's a way, a map of looking at something. It's a lens, really. It's almost like these glasses that I'm wearing because I'm getting really old. And without these glasses, everything is just a little blurry now. My eyes did not used to be like this, but they have been in the last couple years. I think it's the stress of life and having kids and all that. But I guess what I'm saying is that quite similarly, without a theoretical framework, your study is going to be blurry. It's going to have so much stuff going on that it's not going to quite make sense. And so what we need to throw on a lens or a set of lenses so we can narrow down what specifically your study is looking at. Theoretical frameworks, to name them, theoretical frameworks are like Ken Wilber's All Quadrants, All Levels, also known as the Integral Framework. Bass has the Full Range of Leadership model. There's critical race theory. There's Bowman and Deal's 4 interpretations of organizational processes, and there's attachment theory. And there's all these different theories that are out there. And a theoretical framework is basically the lens through which we will be seeing your study. So for example, Bass's Full Range of Leadership model, and I hope I don't butcher this thing here. Please go read about it on your own if you're interested in this type of thing. You might have this original idea that you want to learn about how leaders lead. And that's a very common dissertation topic, especially within organizational leadership contexts, dissertations, and so on, or in educational leadership programs. And in the language of this theoretical framework, Bass's Full Range of Leadership model, what they call it, or at least what I've seen, is they often call it leadership styles, or leadership, what I like is approaches, leadership approaches. So at first we were looking at how leaders lead, but more specifically in the language of the theoretical framework, we're looking at leadership approaches. And just so happens there's many leadership approaches within that model, but 3 big categories there are transformational, transactional, and laissez-faire approaches, and many subtypes. So the point is, when you go and you write your own dissertation, what you need to do is you need to select a theoretical framework, and you need to narrow down, just like we did here. It's going to be narrowed in the language of that theoretical framework. And so here's an example of what that looks like. So with the step, we did that. We went from how good leaders lead to how leaders lead to leadership approaches. And this narrowing process occurs. And it's always, in the end, the what, step 3, is always in the language of your theoretical framework. Now, if you're sitting here and you're following along, and usually this is where we'd pause the video and you'd write down what you think your what is for your purpose statement, my recommendation would be, if you don't know your theoretical framework, pause the video anyway and write down what you think that we're studying about those people that we were talking about in your previous step at that particular place. All right, so on to step 4. We need to figure out the when. This is the easiest step. It can be a sad step, though, because you have to acknowledge that your dissertation writing is going to take some significant time. Chances are, if you're figuring out your purpose statement right now, it's going to be at least 18 months, not always, but most of the time, before you're collecting your data. And it depends on your university, and it depends on what you've done so far. But really, it's at least 18 months. Now, so what you want to do is you want to select a date about 18 months or so in the future. And the date is very simple. You just select a year. And so, for example, as I'm recording this, if I look 18 months into the future, that's just about 2015 or 2016. And that is unless you're looking back in time. Some studies look at back in time stuff. It's like a longitudinal study over many years, or it looks back at a specific point in time many years ago. And so naturally, you'd want to select the year that's appropriate for that. So go ahead and write down that year whenever you think you're going to be collecting your data, or the time in which your study is going to be focusing. The next step is you need to figure out the how. The how is simply you choosing a methodology. Again, I have an entirely other video that's quite lengthy on the dissertationmentor.com about how to select a methodology. It's completely free. Go there, sign up for it. And the first question you need to ask yourself is, are you doing a qualitative study or a quantitative study? This is quite easy because most of you watching this, you're probably staring at my eyes right now thinking, I'm going to do a qualitative or a quantitative study. You have an opinion on this, chances are. And from there, you need to figure out what type of study you're doing. Is it a case study? Is it phenomenological, ex post facto, descriptive, ethnographic? And my other video goes into a lot of detail about how to pick these. But just to say, there are many different types of studies. You need to pick one. So for example, you want to do a qualitative study and you want to do a case study. So you're just going to write down right now for step 5, for how, you're going to write down qualitative case study. And that's step 5. It's really that simple. Step 6 is you put it all together. So what we've done here on this video is we've gone through an example, a series of examples. And so this is what I have written down. Now, if you have not done this, please, I beg of you, please pause this video and create something just like this in Microsoft Word, whatever word processor you use, or on a piece of paper, and write down each one of these and just, be clear as we go into the next slide, because this is where the magic happens. So this is my example. We narrowed down a lot to get here. What I do is you look at the bottom there. In red, there is a series of fill in the blanks. And this is exactly what you're doing. You're going to do some wordsmithing here, and you're going to make this sound right. Now, if I plug in all my stuff here, here's exactly what I get. I get the purpose of this qualitative case study is to examine the leadership approaches of CEOs in their first 5 years in this position at publicly held top 10 Fortune 500 companies in the United States in 2015. Whew. So do you get that feeling when you read that of how solid that is? Now my hope is that through this video that you have done this exact thing, that you have gone through this process. You don't have the same purpose statement as I've written here. I don't even know if this one's that great. I mean, it's pretty good. But in the end, it's up to you and your chair. And there's a lot of background work that goes into this. But just to say that when you read your purpose statement, it should sound that solid. And not only that, but you should be able to put it to what I call the sniff test. That it should have no buzzwords in it. Nothing like motivation, effectiveness, impact, all that stuff. There should be no why you're doing it in your purpose statement. There's no hint of justification or of significance or of the because of your study. None of that should be there. That goes higher up, in your chapter 1, in your purpose statement. In your problem statement, in your background, and then lower in your chapter 1, your significance statement as well. Biases and assumptions should not be there. So, for example, you should not assume that there, for example, if you're studying if you're studying, you think effective communication, and then in the end you land on you're studying the communication styles, and you have a certain type of communication style. You have a framework for that, that names like 4 communication styles or something. What you're going to do is you're not going to say what contributes to bad communication styles. Notice how that's very biased from the get-go. You also want to remove any notions of comparison, A/B tests, experimentation, and that's my opinion and my experience, unless you want to add years to your doctoral journey. Is it always like that? No. I've seen some studies go through, but they are absolutely the rarity. And my recommendation is you don't walk down that path. That's just my opinion, my experience. You can take that or leave it. In the end, the question that your purpose statement should really answer for you is, does it provide an answer to your problem statement in your chapter 1? Now, if you read that and you go, I don't know, and if you read your problem statement, if you have one, and you're like, I still don't know, chances are either your problem statement needs more development or your purpose statement needs some reworking. But either case, my hope is that through this process, you've gotten a little bit more of an understanding of what goes into an amazing purpose statement. And chances are you've made some progress if you've gone through the steps of this video. Now, if you haven't made any progress, I don't know what happened, but my recommendation is to go back and actually pause the video at the end of each step and go through each one. Because I have a feeling that if you follow these steps, you are going to feel a lot more solid about the purpose statement that you're using. In the end, check out my videos at thedissertationmentor.com. And if you like this video, hit that like button, please. And if you want to know more about a certain subject, leave me a comment below, and I'll be glad to answer it. Hey, take care, folks. Thanks again. Good night.